What's going on, everyone? Happy Monday to everyone. Hopefully, everyone is doing well and having a great day so far. It is time now for the Monday weather update for Monday, June 10th, 2024. If you're new to my channel, this is where we do the daily weather update for all things weather in the United States. We talk about the weather forecast, we talk about weather events that are going to be happening, and pretty much just the daily weather. But we also do talk about climate at times as well, and that can be anywhere in the world. In the United States, in Canada, Europe, Asia, Australia, anything. So sometimes if I see a historic weather event that happens, I do mention it. Today's focus is going to be on the United States weather, the severe weather threats for today, and we're going to talk more about the flooding and heavy rainfall threat for Florida because model data, it continues to be impressive, and there's some indications that rainfall totals could be even higher than what we talked about yesterday. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe down below, give this a thumbs up, hit that notification bell, leave your comments and questions down below, and of course, share this with anyone you know, as my goal is to try and keep you informed and weather aware and safe from whatever could be coming your way. All right, starting off today with the radar picture, you do see we have a few things that are going on. First off, we do have a system up in the northern plains in North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana. There are some showers and thunderstorms, and that will continue for the next several hours. Some of them will be severe. There have already been a few severe reports in this area. The majority of this activity should die down once we lose the heating of the day when the sun sets. You also see in South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, even the Florida Panhandle, we do have some showers and thunderstorms, and that has turned severe. We'll take a look at the Storm Prediction Center for that in a moment. And if we look at southern Florida here, we can see things are in the infant stages of tropical moisture. Take a look here. Look what's over Cuba. Moisture's starting to build, and that flow, it's going to be setting up. And by tonight, there's going to be some areas of very heavy rainfall, maybe even some areas that have training storms. Yes, it's not going to be a big severe weather threat, but it is going to be a flash flood threat that lasts several days. Over Texas today, you do see that there are some showers and thunderstorms, and over New Mexico as well. Just a few showers in Maine today. The West Coast U.S. is relatively dry and quiet so far today. Taking a look at the National Weather Service hazards map, and you do see several new things that were not there yesterday. First off, there's this severe thunderstorm watch that is up for portions of Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and portions of Nebraska. And there's already some severe thunderstorm warnings within this. You also see that there is a severe thunderstorm watch across portions of South Carolina and Georgia, and there's even severe thunderstorm warnings that are southwest of the watch. So it would appear to me the severe weather aspect there is slightly overperforming, but now you also see something new, and that is flood watches that are now up for portions of southern Florida. And then in the southwest U.S., you can see here there is heat advisories and excessive heat watches that are up because it is going to be relatively hot. Even excessive heat warnings up for portions of California. All right, taking a look at what happened yesterday, there were 93 total severe storm reports. One tornado was reported, and that was in the state of Colorado. 53 wind reports, 39 hail reports, and 5 of them were rather large. So far today, just 5 wind reports and 3 hail reports so far. I suspect this number will probably go up a bit higher as there currently is some ongoing severe thunderstorm warnings. Taking a look now at the forecast for the rest of the day, and you can see here, there's those watches once again, severe thunderstorm watches. Hey, if you're in those areas and you do get a severe thunderstorm warning, please move indoors when thunder roars. All right, taking a look now at the outlook for the rest of today, there is also now a slight risk of severe weather in Texas, and there's just only a couple areas that have 2% for tornadoes. The one area in the plains and the one down in South Carolina and Georgia. And we can also see here, wind is another threat, and hail is also a threat as well. Wind and hail are the two biggest threats for today. But if we advance to tomorrow, we do see there are multiple risk areas. There's a little marginal area, a little disturbance that will move through portions of North Carolina and extreme southern Virginia. Also a marginal risk in Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. Then you have a marginal risk of severe weather tomorrow across portions of New Mexico and Colorado, and a slight risk in Texas. As for tomorrow, Less than 2% of all areas for tornado risk at this time. That's always subject to change, and on any given day that there's thunderstorms, there could be an isolated tornado. We've seen it happen before. Sometimes a tornado can be very sneaky, and even under the most marginal conditions, a tornado can form. Day 3, which would be Wednesday, we do have a slight risk of severe weather across northeast Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and northern Iowa. That's an area that we will have to watch, and they already have a hatched area at this time. Wind and hail could be quite the threat, and who knows, over time, it's being day 3, there's already a hatched area, this could get upgraded to an enhanced risk. Let's take a look at the HRRR model for the rest of today, and this is the 18Z run that just came in. You can see those showers and thunderstorms will continue in the plains, and they will continue in South Carolina, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle, and that is along a frontal boundary. That boundary will eventually stall, and there could even be some southwest to northeast training that sets up in that area. But you see something else, and for this we have to push to the southeast view. You can see here as we head into tonight. You know how showers and thunderstorms, when you lose the heat of the day in Florida, sometimes they diminish? In this case, with the tropical flow, watch what happens. Coverage might actually increase tonight. And mind you, you have that boundary to the north. Some of the foreseen and energy from that is going to get mixed into the works as well. And look what happens overnight. Very heavy rainfall in southern Florida. If you're south of Orlando, Florida, maybe even Tampa, like from I-4 on southward, you could see training storms, very heavy rainfall. It's not going to be much in the way of a severe threat, although maybe one warning, it can't be ruled out, but you are going to see these training areas of heavy rain that just set up over the same areas again and again. And you can really see that on Florida's Gulf Coast. Look at this. This is really impressive. We are now into Tuesday afternoon, and it's still ongoing. And mind you, this is going to start up probably after midnight tonight is when it's really going to start to increase in coverage. And this will just continue throughout the day tomorrow, eventually pushing south before, yes, yet again, probably another round will set up again tomorrow in the evening. And you can see Miami tomorrow night. Miami, that might be when you really get into some training rainfall. And then you can see it's not just one area. There's multiple areas that could be dealing with these rounds of training heavy rainfall. And let's just take a look at HRRR amounts. This is the HRRR model. Just over the next 48 hours, it is showing widespread areas of 3 to 5 inches of rain. But then where you see these oranges and yellows, yeah, that's 10 plus inches of rainfall being shown on the HRRR just through 48 hours. And mind you, this event is going to last several days. It may go even into the weekend. Yes, you heard me correctly. It may persist into the weekend. And at that point, it's going to shift northwest more, but the damage will be done. And yes, you do need the rainfall. I can show you the drought map. Take a look down there. You see it's relatively dry. This is going to be too much rainfall at one time. And it would not surprise me if a couple daily rainfall records might get broken, because the rain that's going to be training over these storms that will be training over the same area will contain very heavy rainfall rates. 2 to 3, maybe even 4-inch per hour rates could set up in some of these training segments because you're dealing with such rich tropical moisture. All right, let's take a look at the Weather Prediction Center. Just a marginal risk of excessive rainfall down there today. Also a marginal risk across South Carolina and Georgia, although if we do see a training segment set up there tonight, a flash flood warning or two is not out of the question. Marginal risk across Texas, Colorado, and New Mexico, and in the northern plains. Now, advancing to tomorrow, you do see a slight risk is introduced for southern Florida. Would not surprise me if that gets upgraded to a moderate risk of excessive rainfall. You just saw the HRRR model, which is extremely wet for Florida, large marginal risk area in Texas, and day 3 is pretty much of the same. Marginal risk area in Texas, and again, slight risk in Florida. Pretty far out there. We'll have to see if that needs to be upgraded to a moderate risk or not. The Weather Prediction Center obviously makes that decision, but wouldn't surprise me if that in time gets upgraded as well, because, well, this flow of tropical moisture along this boundary is pretty much going to be stalled there day after day. All right, how much rainfall is the Weather Prediction Center calling for? Well, you can see here, day 1, is very wet, and day one they're going with a widespread area of 3 to 5 inches, generally west of Miami, and a lot of this is from what is going to happen overnight tonight when things really start going. The low level jet will get going, all these different dynamics will get going that are going to increase the coverage of convection tonight. And then day two, a bit more widespread. Miami, you start to get into the heavier rainfall. And look at day three, day four. And now we're coming to the end of the week. You can see here, this tropical moisture flow just sits for day after day after day before it eventually pushes to the northwest, and it may even get rejuvenated and re-energized, and Florida Panhandle, Alabama coast, and even Mississippi coast as we head into the weekend. You'll have to watch as well. There could be some training tropical moisture that's coming from south to north for you as well. So a lot of questions as we get into the weekend, but the one thing that is pretty much set in stone, southern Florida is in for one heck of a rainfall event right now. Let's take a look at days 1 through 7. You can see here on the day 1 through 7 precipitation total. So 168-hour precipitation total, which would go pretty much in the next week at this point. You can see here from I-4 on southward, widespread 5 to 10 inches of rain. Then where you see this yellow color, that is 10 to 15 inches of rain being expected. And these little gold pockets, like this brighter yellow, yes, those are localized areas of 15 to 20 inches of rainfall being predicted by the National Weather Service. And you can see here, at the end of this, you're starting to see some 5+ inches of rainfall showing up for portions of the Gulf Coast up around Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. Because remember, this is going to shift back northwest. We won't focus too much on that right now. The main focus right now is the I-4 corridor of Florida on southward. As for the rest of the country, generally quiet on the west coast. You will get a little bit of shower activity in the Pacific Northwest, and then we will have some activity in the upper Midwest, because that's going to be from that severe weather threat that happens later on midweek. And then, of course, just a few shower threats in the Northeast, nothing major. Look at Pennsylvania, look at the Mid-Atlantic, North Carolina, Virginia, very dry for you, and just still some ongoing daily shower and thunderstorm activity just for the next day or two in Texas. All right, moving on now, let's take a look at the GFS model. And I want to show you what happens on the GFS. You can see here, the shower and thunderstorm activity really gets going, and I'm going to make this easier for you to see so you can see the dates. You can see the shower and thunderstorm activity really gets going tomorrow night in Florida. Then it dies off a little bit, and then it gets going once again. And eventually, this will start to push northwest. But I want to rewind this for a second. Let's take a look at Wednesday evening. You can see here, there are severe thunderstorms on the GFS up in portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. That system, it's not going to be terribly impressive. It will be on, at least on Wednesday. That's the greatest threat for severe weather. And that front will eventually push into the northeast. And there could be an isolated severe weather threat on Friday in the northeast. And you also notice as we head towards Friday, that boundary in Florida is still there. But watch what happens as we head towards the second part of the weekend. You can see here that moisture flow, while it dies a little bit, an area of low pressure tries to get going, and that pushes the moisture once again up into the Gulf Coast. It could even get as far west as Louisiana. We'll have to watch what happens, but look at this. You're seeing very heavy rainfall just day after day after day right over the same areas. How much rainfall is on the GFS? Well, it's actually going to go off the color code here in some areas. You can see here, GFS is very wet down in Florida, and it's not even a mesoscale model, so it's not going to pick up little training segments. But something else it is showing. In the longer run, it is showing very heavy rainfall over portions of Alabama, portions of Mississippi, and even Louisiana down in New Orleans. So these areas are going to get hammered. And you also see here, this run is a little bit wetter for Pennsylvania. Remember I was talking about how there's going to be a dry spot there? It's still going to be a little drier than usual, but today the GFS went a little bit wetter. But look at the Carolinas. Look at North Carolina and Virginia, where you're going to be just north of this system. There's going to be a whole bunch of nothing going on, and you're going to start to see some dry conditions. Look at Southwest. Look at Nevada, California, even portions of Arizona. Not a whole lot of precipitation for you. Alrighty, moving on now. Taking a look at the 6-10 day temperature outlook, we can see here temperatures are going to be above average in the Great Lakes and much of the east. As for precipitation, above average along the Gulf Coast. Again, we're going to be watching this tropical moisture and that low that forms in the Gulf. Right now, it's not going to be tropical, but who knows, down the line, it could be something of interest. Maybe it does gain some tropical characteristics. Taking a look at 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, well above average for much of the country, except if you're in the Pacific Northwest, where temperatures are going to be below average. And finally, 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, that pattern in the south, it is going to continue. While eventually Florida will trend drier into next week, that flow is going to shift its way to the west, and more areas are going to get in on that. Below average in places like Nevada, Utah, California, and near normal in between, where I expect relatively calm weather, although there'll be a few instances, such as later this week, where in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, it's going to get pretty hot, and it may get hot once again as we head into the second half of next week. As you saw, the 8 to 14 day and the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, it is looking to be quite warm. Alrighty, folks, that does it for today's weather update. I know it was a bit of a longer one today, but please, if you are down in Florida, you should be prepared right now for what's coming, because anywhere along I-4 and south, you are going to get very heavy rainfall. And if you live in the rest of the Gulf Coast, like Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida Panhandle, Alabama coast, start paying attention to the forecast, because things are starting to get interesting for you. And as the days go on, we're going to learn more what's going to happen when this flow shifts to the west and re-energizes. You as well could be in for a very heavy rainfall threat late this upcoming weekend or into next week. Of course, I will have more on this tomorrow and anything else that pops up. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Want to see more content like this? Subscribe down below. Share these videos with anyone you know. Leave your comments down below and hit that notification bell. You'll know when I do the daily video. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic Monday evening, everyone. See you all again tomorrow.